Hey everyone, how's it going? Thanks for the intro, and also thank you everyone for joining today. I'm gonna make a confession first of all. Right, I was gonna make slides for this presentation, but unfortunately, that did not happen. So you are gonna have the amazing experience of listening to me talk straight for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. So shall we get started? Let's do it. Okay, so this is titled How to Get Your First Data Science Job. And I'm actually going to be addressing two major populations of people. The first one are students, whether you're an undergraduate student or you're a master's student, generally not PhD students because I feel like those are pretty different in terms of the process. And then also career changers. Maybe you've had experience at a relevant career, slightly relevant career. Maybe you're a software engineer or you're a data engineer, or it can be completely irrelevant. Like in my case, my background was in pharmacology. It was in bioinformatics, or so there's people who I've met from marketing. So career changers as well. All right, so this is going to be the breakdown. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is first addressing these populations and what it is that you should be focusing on. And then I'm going to talk about having a little session just on networking itself, because it's something that people have a lot of fear towards, myself included. I have a lot of fear towards networking, but I'm going to see if I can help you break that down a little bit so you see it from a different perspective and it doesn't feel so scary anymore. Also, a little disclaimer, I'm not very huge into networking itself, so that's also something how I will explain how I managed to get the things done and just get my current position, get these things to whatever state I needed to be in without doing a lot of networking. All right, so what I get a lot of people asking me on YouTube or just like in person is like, hey, like I learned data science, maybe I have a degree that's actually relevant as well, but I can't actually get a job. Like I send out like 100 different emails to places, I apply online, I do all these things, and like I don't actually get a job afterwards. So how do you actually get a job? Well, I think what's really important, first of all, is understanding from the perspective of the recruiter and the company, right? Not just as you as the applicant. Like what do you think? What do you think it is that a recruiter who's trying to hire you as a data scientist cares about the most? Well, seeing as I can't actually get answers right now, what they care about the most is experience. They care about data science experience, relevant experience, because that is the best predictor of how good you will be as a data scientist at that company. Right? Obviously, they also want things like, they want to make sure that you have the correct skill set, but if you were a data scientist, you probably already have the correct skill set, and they also want to make sure that the culture fit, you're not someone who just doesn't fit into the culture at all, right? But really, the biggest thing that they're looking for is experience. So it becomes a bit of a chicken or an egg question, though, doesn't it? It's like, how do you get experience if you have no experience? It's a very good question. It's a very good question indeed. But so I'm going to tell you. So like, I think people view data science experience as too formal. Like they see like the experience like, oh, I have to get a job as a data scientist at a certain company, call myself a data scientist, and that counts as experience. But I don't really see that at all like that. Experience just means that you want to have a experience in which you use your skills and have real life impact, because that mimics what a job does, right? You want to just get as close to having a actual real life data science job as possible, but it doesn't mean that you need to exactly like get that job and hold that exact title. You just need to show that, portray that in some fashion. So the philosophy that I like to go by is like, how do you get that experience and then help you actually land your first proper data science job if you like? I like to see in terms of trying to think about more holistically, right? Think about what your strengths are and what your circumstances are, how you can take advantage of those things, in addition to your interests, and combine that together in order to form a cohesive story of you as a data scientist, your skill sets, all the experience that you've had and all the impact that you've had. So then that can shine through in your application, and then you will be much easier for you to land a data science job. So let's focus first on the first population of students, okay? So if you're a student, you're actually in a really, really good position to just in general. Like you're in a really good position because you have so many resources available to you. Maybe you don't even realize this, but there's a lot of resources that are available that you can easily take advantage, so you can actually mimic having a data science job and just get that on your resume. And it's also most often with very low barriers of entry. My favorite version of this is research. Research is my favorite. If anybody's actually watched my YouTube videos, I've like preached about this many times. I just think research is such a great position because it allows you to really use your data science skills, right? And it does count as a proper job if you're a research assistant at a lab, for example. And it has a low barrier of entry because, you know, when you first start out, when you just contact a professor, you're already a student at that university, for example, they will usually like trial you out, right? I personally don't like the idea of not paying students to do research, but if it's your first time ever, you know, you might have to deal with that in the beginning. But you know, most research professors are willing to give you a chance, especially if you can prove the skill sets of having statistics skill set, and if you know how to code and you can demonstrate that. Like to them, this is great, right? They either don't have to pay you, where they pay very minimal amounts, and you're able to help them a lot with your data analytics, or data science. So me personally, I had a lot of wet lab experience because I was in pharmacology. I actually was pre-med before. And then over time, I got bioinformatics research positions, and then I also got a job, a paid bioinformatics job. Also as a research assistant at a lab in cancer research. And that really was kind of the first bridge for me to become what it is that I am now, right? So bioinformatics is where all started, and all started with a professor taking a chance on me because I just demonstrated I had these skill sets, and he was willing to take a chance because it was a low. Okay, I think that paused a little bit. Anyways, okay, so moving on, some other great resources out there are consulting clubs. Consulting clubs, a lot of universities have these as well. When I was doing my master's at the University of Pennsylvania, there was a Penn Consulting Club. If you go into these clubs, it's also a great way for you to demonstrate real life data science impact that mimics having a job. And the reason for this is that a lot of companies, or usually like very small companies, will allow students to come in and give them consulting advice. They do some analytics or whatever and present that to them in order to help them. So if you came in and you took over most of the data science portion of the analytics, then you're able to like take that over, and then you're actually able to have real life impact on a company. So when I was there, I think the example, I'm trying to recall what it was that I did. There was like a yoga store, I believe, and then they were looking into expanding their revenue, and there was like specific things that they wanted to investigate into. So I did some of the opportunity sizing to see which one is actually the most profitable thing to do. And then I think I don't even recall it. I made a couple models as well, just like for forecasting. And then that was I put that on my resume, and a lot of people, when I was applying to jobs, they said that that was one of the reasons, including in addition to my research experience, that was one of the reasons why they actually interviewed me for that job, because it was different from the other people, because I showed that I could do data science, not just from personal projects, not just things that are not real, right? Like I had actual impact, and that's what they were looking for as a data scientist. Quickly, another example that is hackathons if you're a student. So this one is not as good, I would say, as research and consulting, but it's also it's much lower effort and lower dedication because it's usually like 36 hours, where like just over a weekend or something like that. Also went to a bunch of hackathons, both at University of Toronto, where I did my undergrad, as well as at the University of Pennsylvania. Okay, so next population is career changers. So career changers, I thought that what I get most from career changers is the mindset, like, okay, I'm going to be a data scientist now. Like, you know, everything I did, like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be a data scientist. And what I always urge people to think about is don't quit your job, first of all, and don't throw away all your experience. All that experience that you have is your advantage. You know, that is to your advantage, and you should leverage that and demonstrate how transferable those skill sets are. Like, you don't want to be competing with people who are fresh out of school. You know, you have all that experience already. So take that, use that as your strength. The advice I generally give people, like the first thing is that you should try to gain experience at your current company if you are currently employed. So for example, and when I say experience, I mean like data science related experience. Again, it's going to have impact because it's clearly in data science and you're demonstrating that skill set. And it's also usually not too much effort because it's not like you have to go through the entire hiring process within your own company. So an example, if you're a software engineer and working in a company, you can try to pick up some projects that involve data. Like maybe instead of doing just software engineering, you can be building like a data lake, for example, or something in data engineering. So it's like tangentially related, but it's something that gives you like that foot in the door, right? For example, if you're in marketing, really in a lot of different companies now, there's just a lot of data that's available, and people are doing analytics on it all the time. So instead of just doing your normal analytics, however it is, like try writing a Python script to do it. Try using some SQL if your company doesn't use that already. Generally, I feel like most companies wouldn't be like, no, like you shouldn't try to be more efficient and try to be better at your job, But I actually have had people actually say, like, for some reason, there's some companies that wouldn't let you do that. And if that's the case, two things, at least for me, my opinion, okay? So take this with a grain of salt. First one, I think you shouldn't ask for permission. You should ask for forgiveness if for whatever reason, like obviously don't do that with like sensitive data or something like that, but for like, if you feel like it's reasonable, then I personally, at least, don't hold me accountable. I would just go and do it, instead of using a UI, maybe I'll just write a Python script. Instead of just doing a modeling thing using whatever it is that they're usually doing, I'll probably just write my own model for it. And also, if it's a company that really just wants to, they're like, don't do that, then do you really want to be working for a company that doesn't want you to be improving? That's at least how I see it. Anyways, that ramble aside. So that I would really highly just encourage you to try to take on jobs or just like projects that are data science related at your current job if you can. Also make friends with people who are data analysts, who are data engineers and data scientists. You'll find that you have a lot more opportunities if you actually are friends with them, which is part of the networking thing, which I'm touching on a little bit now. And then the second part is that I really encourage you to leverage your skill set outside as well. There's a lot of like charities, for example, like open source projects that are maybe related to the field that you're working in right now. Instead of going in as your current position, you can try to contribute from a data science perspective and actually use your industry knowledge to improve whatever products it is that they're trying to build or whatever services it is that you're trying to build as well. So let's see. Okay, that concludes pretty much my whole like what you should do if you're a student and also what you should do if you are a career changer. The one note of caution again, I just want to make here, I feel like I'm gonna get bashed for this potentially, but I don't like Kaggle. I don't like Kaggle competitions. I don't like competitive coding for jobs. Okay, they're great for learning. They're very fun and you can increase your skill sets very, very good. But I don't think it's a good approach to use Kaggle, use competitions, and put that on your resume and hope you can get a job from that. And the reason is very simple. It's because it's not realistic, right? These competitions, they're really fun. They're great for learning. They do all these different things, but they're not realistic. Like if you can do a good Kaggle competition, if you're a grandmaster, that doesn't mean you're a good data scientist at a company, right? So in the perspective of a recruiter, you're also like, that doesn't demonstrate that as much as if you actually had experience. In one of these things that I've mentioned previously, one of these projects that you can do. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about the topic of networking. So obviously, you get your experience, put that on your resume. You should, do your portfolio, make sure that everything looks great. But then, there's the aspect of people who would come and ask me, like, what about networking, right? Like, how much networking do I have to do? Because sometimes they're just like, oh, should I just apply online directly? Should I network? And here's my philosophy, again, just from my perspective. A lot of people have a lot of different perspectives and also depends a lot on industries and experience, which is probably why it's so diverse. In my case, I just want to put that in the context of my own experience, which was I came from like I did my master's degree in computer science, but I come from like a slightly non-traditional background in pharmacology and bioinformatics. So there was like a little bit of risk taking on when a recruiter looked at my resume. It was a little bit strange, but I also did have the like leverage of the University of Pennsylvania, which is a really good university that, having that name allowed me to get interviews just because of that. So I just want to put that into context, right? So, okay, networking. If you also have a relevant degree and you're a student right now, even if I would just say if you have a relevant degree and you're a student, I would actually recommend that you don't really need to do that much networking. Like, I wouldn't recommend going to those huge career fairs that you often have in universities, because honestly, what they're going to do is tell you to apply online anyway. Like, it's just like lines and lines of people handing their resumes, but honestly, they're just going to tell you to apply online. That's at least from my experience. So if you have a similar background to what I had. That's what I recommend. Just apply online. Like seriously, like if you just apply online and you already have all that experience, it shows that you have projects that are relevant as a data scientist, then you should be fine. You should be able to get interviews from that. However, if you have a non-traditional background, you don't have a relevant degree, or you're a career changer, then networking plays a more important part. So how I like to see networking is also, I try to see it as less formal, because I really don't like the idea of like approaching someone and just be like, oh, like help me get a job. You know, I don't know. I just really dislike that. So I like to think of it more in terms of just learning, like showing up, being like, I'm just trying to learn stuff. You can ask people you can ask people to introduce you to other data scientists, to people who are working at companies that you might be interested in, and don't approach it as in like, give me things. You know, approach it in terms of, I want to learn more about your position. I want to learn more about what it is that you do. I want to see if it's something that I'm also interested in as well. And just like keep that conversation going. Like, don't just like be like asking for stuff, you know. Think about it in terms of a natural relationship, right? Like, you wouldn't want to hang out with someone who's just constantly asking you for things, right? Try to see it more as like a relationship, as a friendship even, if you can. And then also another thing I like to keep in mind is just, networking doesn't have to be done in isolation. You know, you don't have to like wake up today and be like, today I'm going to do 3 networking activities. You know, try to think about it in terms of more of an open mindset. If you're just approaching it in terms of, you just like tell your friends that, hey, like I'm looking for a data science position or something related. If you know anybody that would be okay talking to me, like let me know, right? Like these very, just like kind of almost like planting your seeds in a lot of different places. And also, of course, giving back, right? So it's like, if anybody's interested in your role, in what is that you're doing, your experiences, give back to that. That's how the whole networking ecosystem works, right? It's about giving and taking. So yeah, if you just plant those seeds, you know, topically you're interested, maybe post on LinkedIn, post on different social media platforms, what it is that you're interested in exploring, things like that, you actually find there's a lot of very natural relationships that come out of that. That would be my 2 cents on networking. Even now, like I honestly don't like networking at all. So this is just like my way of dealing with having to do like networking, but not really thinking about it in terms of networking, thinking about it more in terms of, how do I like form relationships with people? How do I learn more things? How do I give back to the community as well, and just be part of that community? Well, I think that is everything that I had to talk about today.
All right, very good. Thank you so much, Tina. I appreciate you presenting to us this afternoon. A wonderful, excellent presentation. Um, Question for you. I've seen a couple of studies that claim recruiters spend as little as 30 seconds to look over somebody's resume and make a decision. What is one tip that you would suggest to those who would want to stand up above the crowd, so to speak, and grab the attention of those people, since they've only got that 30-second time slot, so to speak?
Okay, I don't know the validity of the 30-second thing. I've actually heard about that myself as well. I don't know if it's actually true, because from talking to recruiters, I think it kind of varies, you know, but assuming they have 30 seconds, all right? And I don't think my advice would actually change otherwise. It's about telling a story. If you want to stand out, like when they see your resume, that is you, right? Unfortunately,
Right.
you don't get to like show up and be like, hey, like, you know, let me like show my personality, all these different stuff. You don't get to do that. So your resume is you. It's a representation of you. I think about it more in terms of storytelling. Like honestly, if you list out like 50 different skill sets that you know how to do, the recruiter, like they've seen the 56 different skill sets on every other resume they've already seen. Like no, like whatever, you know. It's like, and it's not really about how many skills it is that you have. It's about demonstrating those qualities through storytelling. For
Mm.
example, you want to demonstrate that you have that real life experience in data science, right? How can you demonstrate that? Well, by having projects like consulting, for example, by having projects like research experience, that makes you stand out. That makes you different because you have that experience. You want to demonstrate you have these skill sets. Instead of listing like a laundry list of skill sets, embed that within the projects. When you're saying like, I use Python to do X, Y, Z, instead of just writing I know Python, right? It's far more
Right.
impactful. Um, yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Just view it in terms of a representation of you. Don't be afraid to put in things that uh, you feel like might not even be relevant. Like if you have certain hobbies, like you did a data science project about that hobby where it's related to your job in some fashion, put that in there, express your personality, but always think about it in terms of skill sets and how to demonstrate things, how to tell the story of yourself.
Excellent. And to me, that harkens to what kind of value can you bring to the organization? And if you are seen as one who can bring that value, I'm
Mhm.
certain that's going to make people stand up above the rest of the crowd, don't you think?
Yeah, yep, I agree.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. And forgive me for looking away from the camera so I can see the questions here. What other ideas do you have on leveraging your non-traditional path?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
What was it that I listed earlier? It was pretty much about like, oh, you can do. I'm like, I like took some notes. I actually forgot what I wrote, what I even talked about because I was like pretty freeform. I think what I talked about was gaining experience in your current company. Oh, right, and leveraging like your different skill sets, right? So
Mhm.
the ideas that I talked about, I believe, were more in terms of open source projects, charities, also like meetups. Meetups have also been pretty interesting because if you like some examples that I can give you. So I come from a pharmacology background, so like a biomedical background, right? And I think about it if I go to biomedical meetups, it's like I'm related to these people because of my background, but I also come in with a fresh skill set, and that generally makes me stand out. You know, because I'm not just someone with a biology background. I'm someone with a biology background that also knows how to do statistics and knows how to code decently. So that I think by being there, that will make you stand out, and you're able to incorporate every like the background that you currently have, and then try to use your new skill sets to do something even better. I like to think, okay, this is also a mindset that I have. I don't really like thinking very narrowly in terms of I have to be the best like X, right? Like I have to be like the
Yeah.
best data scientist. I don't really like to think about it in that way. I'm more in terms of like having the skill sets and the strengths that I have. How is it that I can incorporate that together so it's unique and it brings value? Brings value to whatever company it is I'm working for, but also brings value to different people as well. It's like I want to actually play on those strengths. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can think of how to do that if you just kind of adapt that kind of mindset.
Very good. All right. Here's another question from our audience. You spoke about Kaggle competitions not being great at the eye at the eyes of recruiters. If you had only one way to catch their eye, what would that be? I guess that's similar to what we were talking about earlier about catching their, creating value or whatnot, but maybe from a different angle.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is what I've been preaching about, like just from a very abstract perspective, demonstrate experience as a data scientist, right? I give you a lot
Hmm.
of examples of how you can possibly do that from different projects, but the closer it is to show that you had a job as a data scientist, that makes you much more attractive to a recruiter.
Absolutely. Has creating content helped you to in grow I guess in growing is I think is what they meant. Let me start all over. Has creating content helped you in growing your data career, or was it the other way around?
That's a very good
Yeah.
question. Like tough questions here, right? Like I'm just gonna like start spiel start spiel about my inner fears. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I think content creation has been really interesting for me because I wouldn't really label myself as like a pure data science creator because I don't. It's for me. It's a lot more than just data science. The way that I see my channel, I see it as a way that I learn and grow as a person. I
Mhm.
think in terms of being a data scientist, it has helped me not really in the sense of like acquiring new skill sets, except for being better at public speaking. That has been helpful in communication, but mostly what it's been helpful for is that it forces me to reflect. Because when I make videos about my experiences and I make things about my life, I kind of have to think about it, right? And I think a lot of times
Right.
people don't really reflect a lot. And when I'm forced to reflect, I actually notice like, hey, this is something that I could have done better. You know, this is something that I wish I had known. And then now it becomes more conscious in my brain. I then know what it is I have to do to actually improve those skill sets. So the reflection component has been very, very helpful. Skill set acquisition, not so much.
All right. We have time for one more question from Kevin Clayman asks, are there any recruitment firms that specialize in data analyst or business intelligence roles?
I don't know of any in particular myself off the top of my head, but I will not be surprised. You will probably, so I have talked to a few different recruiting companies before. And they usually lump together data scientists, unfortunately, with like software engineers and IT professionals. I mean, it kind of is fair if you think about it, because oftentimes, especially if you're on more like the data science from an engineering perspective, like for example, I come from a computer science background, where you're more of like a stats person as opposed to like
Mhm.
business analytics. Your skill set is kind of similar enough to IT professionals, to engineers. So they actually like often do them together. But I don't think like those companies also do help in hiring data scientists as well.
Okay. Oh, goodness. Well, this is just absolute gold today, Tina. Thank you so much for being with us today. Where can people find you, or the best way for people to connect with you if you want them to connect, or if you know, you said you don't like networking, so that's probably not a good question. I don't know. No, I'm teasing.
That's what I said. I don't like the idea of like conscious networking, but I
Right, right, right,
love
right, right.
talking to people. I love connecting with people. That's why I love doing these talks. These and I also do YouTube and content creation. That's absolutely why. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I also on YouTube if you're not there. I also do study streams. So I do Monday, Tuesdays, and Fridays, and that's like a more casual way of interacting with me if you want to do that. Although you will have to study in order to do that. So we take breaks and we chat, but it's also more of like keeping each other accountable. There's also Discord. If you just check out my YouTube channel, all the other social medias, everything is linked over there.
Excellent. Certainly a wonderful resource to check out. It's great when you can combine what you do and you do it so well, and then you just happen to love doing it. You combine passion and ability with drive, and it's just a wonderful combination. I guess that's also good for job seekers as well, right?
Yeah.
Doing what you love, you're really good at it, you're driven to it, you have a passion for it, and you just move forward and you can't help but succeed in a manner of speaking. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
for sure, for sure. All right. Well, Tina Huang, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We absolutely enjoyed your presentation, and we wish you all the best in your future endeavors, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having
Yes,
me.
ma'am. All right, you too.